But okay, folks, welcome to a new episode of General Geekery. I'm JD. My usual co-host Brian is not with us tonight. Instead, I've got a special guest with us, Ryan Costello, aka Scramble.
I'm a special guest? Thank you.
Yes, sir. We are going to discuss and kind of review the Snake Eyes Origins G.I. Joe movie. Brian didn't see it. Brian won't see it. Brian said, it looks like a dumpster fire. I don't know what he means by that. I know what dumpster fire generally refers to, and I don't see how that applies to this movie. And yeah, so he won't. And even if I didn't like the look of the movie, I would have gone to see it anyways, because I support the brand no matter what. Valor versus Venom, the CGI movie. Oh, I bought that shit. The Sigma 6 toys. Oh, I bought those. The Sigma 6 cartoon. Oh, I watched that. Yes, Ryan and I were both Sigma 6 fans. There were some of us out there. But
there is stuff to love about Sigma 6.
There is. Firefly was awesome. He wasn't in the cartoon.
The Joe version or the Cobra version?
Well, both, really, but
okay.
I like the turncoat aspect.
Right.
But so yeah, we both saw Snake Eyes. Ryan saw it the other night. Have you only seen it once?
Yes, I've only seen it the one time.
Okay, because yeah, I went today. I will probably go a second time. But I do not have the stamina to see more than one movie in a day like I used to.
Sure.
20 years ago, I probably would have gone twice to see this in succession, but I'm old now.
I can say that 10 years ago, I saw Rise of Cobra at a midnight showing and then 7 p.m. the next night.
Wow, you saw Rise of Cobra at a midnight showing.
What else was I supposed to do? I didn't know.
I'm impressed. No, I'm impressed because I didn't know they had midnight showings for Rise of Cobra. I did go to Hamilton, Ontario to see it because there were a raffle prize at one of the Canadian Joe meets or the Canadian Joe Con. I think, was it a con yet? Yeah.
I think that was the first year it was a con.
Yeah. I won a raffle prize of 2 tickets to go see Rise of Cobra. I went by myself because there was nobody else to use the second ticket because the few friends that I had here all decided they didn't want to cross the border to go see it. So whatever. But yeah, I saw this this afternoon, and this movie's gotten a lot of hate so far. It's got its share of plenty good feedback. But what do fanboys do? What do the stereotypical fanboys do? They hate on everything.
Oh, they don't love unconditionally?
No, God. If only they could hate more conditionally than they do. But between the Masters of the Universe Revelations cartoon starting on Netflix yesterday and Snake Eyes in the theaters this weekend, there's been some people that have just blanket decided to hate everything that's fanboy related. Shocking, I know. But we are probably going to talk positively because I want to, because I liked it, and I think this had plenty of merit. So, Ryan, what did you overall think?
So, to me, this was a movie in 3 parts. We've got that first 10 minutes where we're getting into his day-to-day life after we find out what happened to his dad. And that's where I was first like, oh, I'm kind of worried about this. It felt a little slow. The dialogue was not great. And that not the first action scene, the action scene, the fight with Mojo Raleigh, the pit fight, that was cool. But then when it got to here's 100 ninjas against 2 guys, I could not tell what was going on.
Hang on, I forgot. Sure. We're going to spoil the shit out of this movie.
Yes.
So spoiler warning, I was supposed to say that up top. We're not going to hold back. If you haven't seen this movie yet, but are intending to, don't listen to this because we're going to spoil all the best and otherwise parts. And if you have already seen the movie, well, then please do indulge us. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, the action's not good. The dialogue's not great. This is going to be just kind of rough. And then we got to the Arashikage Temple, and suddenly, like, there were twists. The characters got more interesting. They started introducing a lot of really interesting elements, and I was like, okay, I'm super on board. This movie has got me. And then very suddenly, it lost me completely for the last 10, 15 minutes. And I just, like, left the theater like, I'm not even sure how much I liked this movie. Because at one point, I could have said I loved this movie. And at other points, I could say I hated this movie. But I don't think I could say either of those things overall. Overall, I think it was a good movie that lost me at the end.
There were parts that I was about. There, overall, I really liked it, but all the way back to Rise of Cobra, when people were seeing it and they were saying there were complaints that it was too much emphasis on the ninjas, which really, I don't think Rise of Cobra did suffer that part.
No, in fact, I thought the best scene in Rise of Cobra was the kids fighting in the kitchen.
Well, among the few good scenes in that movie, yes, but there was no real emphasis on now the ninja emphasis really came in for Retaliation, and I do remember seeing some of the same complaints. Oh, there's too much with the ninja stuff. But I said even back then, I love ninjas, and if they made a GI Joe movie that was almost all ninjas, I'd still see it and I'd still love it. Never expecting they'd actually do that, and then they did that. This movie was primarily a ninja and martial arts GI Joe movie, light on the GI Joe, and there were still parts where I was like, there were parts that I really loved, and then there were a few moments. Giant snakes, anybody? You know what? Just because you have 3 of them doesn't mean that you did it better than Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Which was what, 15 years ago?
Yes.
And they did not look any better.
No. And this is a movie that the trailer did a very good job of not spoiling. There were a few different trailers for it, and those trailers really didn't give a lot away. So in no way was I expecting humongous mutant-sized snakes. Wow. So to say I was dubious on that would be putting it mildly. Most of the other stuff with the Arashikage, the castle and the clan, and seeing all this ninja stuff, the martial art, was amazing. Man, when they went in that pit, the first time they went down in the pit, Snake Eyes goes down for his test. That was goofy. When they actually went back to it at the end of the movie and they go back down into the pit and the snakes come out again, I'm like, really? Twice with this, huh?
Well, also, you had the second trial was like, did they give Snake Eyes some kind of hallucinogen? Anyway, where he revisits what happened to his father, and it's like, okay, so clearly it might just be something psychedelic going on. And so the same thing, they're putting him into a pit, and they're telling him that he needs to be pure of heart. And so, you know, he sees snakes. Maybe it's because he's dealing with Cobra. Maybe because people call him snakes. Maybe this is all in his mind. But then when Akiko comes down and kicks one of the snakes and saves him, it's like, nope, those are literal giant snakes that can smell purity of heart.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if snakes, I don't know if they smell pheromones. I don't know. But if they do, great. We got an anatomy lesson. If they don't, well, then I don't know how they were smelling his purity of heart, because he really wasn't pure of heart, but okay, sure. Yes, when Akiko comes down and kicks one of the snakes and does not get eaten, I was like, well, that's
Pure heart.
I will say this. I thought Akiko was gonna die in this movie. She didn't die in this movie.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things I thought were gonna happen. Akiko dying was top of the list. No, it was second, right after Snake Eyes getting scarred and losing his voice. Neither of those things managed to happen in a Snake Eyes origin movie.
No. This movie did do a good job of setting up for a sequel. I don't know if a sequel is going to happen. I'm tempted to say it's possible. This did set it up if they do decide to go that way. And if they do, I would like to see them continue what they've started here and be consistent with it. Let's follow up with the same cast and the same characters and expand further into the G.I. Joe mythos. Let's not just bring one or two actors back and reboot the rest of it and pretend that the rest of the first movie didn't happen. Okay, Retaliation, thanks.
Actually, you touched on something I wanted to talk about there. A lot of the times when it's the first movie and what's they're already saying is going to be this big shared universe, or it's going to be this big multi-part thing, and like this is the kickoff of a G.I. Joe franchise, even though it's a Snake Eyes movie. A lot of times the first movie is sacrificed for the sake of a bigger movie. It's kind of like what happened with Iron Man 2, where it was too much about setting up the MCU, not enough about making sure Iron Man 2 is good. I thought one of the strengths of Snake Eyes is that it sets up G.I. Joe and Cobra really well. It's
agreed.
Every time a new element of the larger world is introduced, the movie gets more interesting.
Agreed.
Scarlett's introduction, absolutely amazing. The Cobra logo on the guns, and then Snake Eyes finding out he's not just working for the Yakuza, he's also working for a terrorist. It's like the stakes got raised, Cobra got legitimized, we got a cool little backstory about what's going on. Then we got the Baroness. Like every step it took introducing more G.I. Joe stuff was cool.
I agree. In fact, the very first appearance of Cobra, when that weapons crate is open and there's the snake sigil, I was surprised by that, and that was really cool. And when they very quickly explain in the dialogue that that Cobra is basically it's basically a network of terrorist cells, gun runners, or arms dealers, and something else.
I think they said local gangs? Something
alluded
to the Dreadnoks.
Yes. All under kind of a central command. I'm like, okay, you know what? In a Hollywood setting, in a movie universe, that is exactly what Cobra should be. In fact, it's implied in the comics that that's what Cobra always was anyways.
Yeah, you got like Destro and Zartan are kind of members of Cobra, or kind of just their associates with Mars and with the Dreadnoks. And so the way they explain in Snake Eyes, it's like, yes, that is a perfect explanation of Cobra as this umbrella of evil.
Yes, they, without name checking those characters or dropping any specific hints, they did unspeakingly without it. Yeah, not in so many words, but they did leave it open that Mars and the Dreadnoks exist in this universe.
Oh no, there was also something about evil business, because there was some allusion to extensive enterprises and Tomax and Zaymot, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was corrupt corporations and things like, which, of course, in the real world, most corporations are. But you know, that's the reality we live in. So I like the explanation for Cobra, and the fact that we only saw the Baroness, I'm fine with that, because honestly, I've always imagined from the original comics that she was the first member of Cobra. She was the first named non-trooper member of Cobra. Larry Hama created the Baroness for the comic because all the other characters had masks. He wanted somebody for Cobra Commander to be able to talk to who had a face. So it makes sense that the Baroness may have been recruited first. She was all vengeance bound and disillusioned, and she was angry at the world. So of course she joined an organization like this.
Well, and the file card talks about how she's rich too. So from Cobra Commander's point of view, it's like, I need to get her indoctrinated as soon as possible so that she can fund this organization I got.
This is true. In the cartoon, they heavily imply that it's Extensive Enterprises that's been funding Cobra all along, but in the comics, it's made absolutely clear that Cobra Commander conned a lot of people out of money to fund the organization. And yeah, I'm sure the Baroness did have deep pockets and her family legacy and whatever, and I'm sure she contributed a lot. And honestly, her introduction in this made sense to me too. Of course, she'd be out there representing Cobra, and I was a little. What was the thing with Scarlet and the Baroness? Their connection, where they used to be what, friends, and then they.
Oh, I got the impression that was a past. I didn't get the impression they were friends. I thought they were just like, terrorists, counter terrorists. They were just constantly at each
Okay,
other. Like,
because
yeah,
they weren't remotely clear on that.
right.
But I would much rather a dubious mystery like that than say, I don't know, outright explaining that the Baroness and Duke were once engaged. What? You know what? I don't mind changes to the mythos. This had myriad changes to the mythos. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes, they reimagined almost all of Snake Eyes' origin, but I'm fine with that because it isn't like, and when I say change, I mean they changed it from Larry Hama's original exposition, the background that he wrote, into the comic books. But this is far from the first time the G.I. Joe mythos have been reimagined. So
So there's one element about how they rewrote his backstory that I'd like to address. And it
yep,
was the one, so I
go
saw
for
the
it.
movie with my wife, and at the end she was asking, what was the same, what was different. And when I explained her the comic origin, she was like, okay, so his dad wasn't in G.I. Joe. That seemed to be her sticking point. And I've seen a couple of other people really hone in on disliking that. I not only didn't mind it, I actually thought it was a good explanation for why he didn't have a name or a backstory. Like the idea that his dad's backstory was scrubbed. He had this, I got the impression, illegitimate child that he raised in secret. So yeah, the reason that neither of them have social security guards, neither of them have any paper trail, is because he's part of this secret anti-terrorist organization. How did you feel about that change?
That actually made a lot of sense to me too. I, I'll the explanation that Snake Eyes' father was a former member of the Joes was a surprise at first, because honestly, I've just simply never considered the parentage of the Joes before. It's never
Right.
really played into the it aside of maybe the file cards occasionally from the original toy line, maybe mentioning
Yeah.
parents like
Like
Scarlet's.
General Hawk is rich and his comes from a family of generals.
Yes,
That I remember.
and on the original file card, Scarlet's father taught her and her brothers martial arts,
Yeah.
and Hit and Run's parents were killed, and he was an orphan. So
Oh,
every
that's
once in a
right.
while, the parental units would kind of get mentioned, but as a story element, I've never actually stopped to really think about that. All right, there was an episode of the G.I. Joe cartoon where Cobra was kidnapping family members of the
Oh yeah.
Joes too and hypnotizing them or brainwashing them or something. All right, so it's not entirely a new element, but it's never, we don't very often see where there's a direct relation to somebody that was a Joe and somebody who will be a Joe. And I did like that aspect. That is cool. And at first, I was a little jarred by the fact that G.I. Joe already exists, which is fine. I don't mind that part. But that Snake Eyes wasn't part of the initial team. But almost as soon as I started thinking that, I also realized, I'm like, wait a minute. He wasn't, if you look at the adventure team of G.I. Joe as the precursor to the Real American Hero team, while the Real American Hero team's initial lineup was Hawk and the soldiers that he recruited. Joe Colton also started that organization. General Flag was running that organization. So I'm like, wait, so Snake Eyes really has never been one of the first Joes. Okay, fine, this is all cool. This is me. This is my nerd brain while I'm watching the movie processing this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's not one of the initial members in this universe, but that's fine too. I really don't mind small changes like that. I have to rationalize them in my head sometimes as I go. But I was jarred by um, Scarlett being Major O'Hara. I'm like, wow, that's quite a promotion they gave her.
What is she usually? Agent?
No, she's enlisted like most of the Joes are. I want to say I think she's an E5 sergeant, I think. Um, so it wasn't so much that she was an officer that I'm like major. I'm like the only majors on the Joe team, I believe, are Major Storm and
Altitude?
Major Barrage. Oh yeah, and Altitude, who's Sky Patrol. I so but then I'm like, well, in Rise of Cobra they made Duke a captain, so again, it's not new.
This is also an area I do not follow and know much about. So unless the rank is part of the character's name, I don't really know who's what rank.
I am I'm a bit of a nerd.
Oh. I have to go.
There's there's a kind of a running joke on our podcast that if Brian throws a lot of Joes at me, I can usually tell their file names. Occasionally their birthplaces, but not always. I can usually tell the file name. So I do get kind of hung up on the file card details a little bit here and there, but I was just kind of surprised by the rank. But it was cool when they used her real name, and they didn't change it because she was in fact O'Hara. That was a sticking point for me with G.I. Joe Retaliation, where they kept calling Lady J by her last name of J, as if that was her last name. That's her code name. Her last name is Hart Burnett. So I'm like, that really bugged me. So I'm like, okay, at least they used the right name in this movie. So
there's an episode in the cartoon, I think it's just called Flint's Vacation, where he goes to visit his family and they call him Uncle Flint. And it's like either the writers forgot that that's not his real name, or he's been using this code name as a nickname for so long that he's compromised the security of G.I. Joe.
That is a very good point, because the Joes are supposed to be a, I don't know, covert team. And somehow I get the feeling that Dashiell Fairborn should not have been going by Flint in his civilian life. But you know what? That's okay. The cartoon was, well, there were some logic holes.
Yes.
There were some logic holes in this movie too, but I'm fine with that. I do not get hung up on realism in movies, because if I want realism, I'll watch documentaries. You know why I don't watch documentaries? Because the world's a messed up place and I don't need the documentary to tell me that. I like to watch my movies to escape from the real world, and this had plenty of that. Is that Cup? Is that Mike Wazowski?
It's Mike Wazowski.
Nice. We've been watching. My girlfriend and I have been watching Monsters at Work on Disney Plus. So
yeah, I've watched the first 2 episodes. There's a third out now, or is there a fourth by now?
I think there's a fourth one. I've only seen the first 3.
Okay, I'm behind.
That second episode absolutely cracked me up, though. So there's lots of stuff that I could get hung up on with this, but there's huge things that I overlooked. It was interesting to see the Hard Master and the Blind Master in this movie, because these aren't the first movies to use them. Let's see, Rise of Cobra used the Hard Master.
Did it call him Hard Master, or was he just called Storm Shadow's uncle?
I think he was the Hard Master. I think. But in Retaliation, they use the Blind Master, so they're not new. None of the movies have addressed the Soft Master. This didn't either, but I really got the sense that Storm Shadow's grandmother in this movie was supposed to be the Soft Master.
I would have liked some kind of master title for her. She was just the leader of the clan.
Was it my imagination, or was she acting like the Soft Man? I got the sense that she was supposed to be, but they just didn't name her that.
Because, well, when I think of the Soft Master, I think of the one with a sense of humor. Like, he was the more playful master, and I didn't get that impression from her. So what was it about her that reminded you of the Soft Master?
Well, for one, she was the third part of the trio. Yes. Because it's clear that while she is in charge of that, while she is the overseer and the leader of the clan, I got the sense that She was basically like the co-showrunner with the Hard Master and the Blind Master. I was a little bit thrown off that the Hard Master was so young. He was basically the same age as Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and I was looking for somebody who was going to be much older, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if she was supposed to be the soft master. That's kind of the sense I got. But you're right, he was the funny one in the comics. But there was I really like seeing the training and the Arashikagis in action. The set design in this movie was gorgeous. I don't know what the budget on this movie was, but they didn't pull their punches when they were creating scenery and costumes for this movie. I was seriously impressed. I like seeing the ninja training. I really like the solution to the first test where he just asks him for the bowl of water. Right. That was kind of brilliant. I didn't see that coming. That was interesting.
Actually, I'd like to linger on the first test for a bit because
go for it.
Like I was complaining earlier about the big group fights against ninjas, I had trouble following, but the two fights that are really one-on-one characters, not counting the one at the end with Kenta, but like the one in the cage fight I thought was good, and the one with the Hard Master I thought was so good. Like you could feel Snake Eyes' frustration. You could see exactly what was going on, so you could follow that the water wasn't dripping. And the Hard Master was such a jerk. Like just in small things he was saying, the way he was looking at Snake Eyes completely dismissively. It's like, oh, I want to hit him, but that's like, as you find out at the end, that's all part of the test. You were just supposed to kind of make peace with this guy that has not shown you any respect.
I like that when he was schooling Snake Eyes in that first, he wasn't breaking a sweat. He was just like flipping him around, just kind of throwing him around, and then I'd like the humiliation of dumping the water on him.
Right.
It's like, well, I really, all I could think of was Mr. Miyagi's line after he rocks the boat and Daniel falls in the water in the Karate Kid, and he says, "Oh, Daniel, you all wet." I'm like, So I like the first test. I agree with you though on the second and third tests, especially that second test where he's in the forest and he sees that firefly. And it kind of joined, and he kind of goes, it's like a vision quest.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like
Empire Strikes Back.
Skywalker in the Dagobah Dark Force cave.
That's what I thought of too.
So that was interesting. I did wonder if there was a little bit of psychedelic stuff involved there. I don't know if there was. We'll chalk it up to martial arts mysticism.
Sure.
That's cool. I think I would have liked the snakes better had they been an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it.
Yeah, because there's too many questions that are raised about those snakes.
When he's in the pit and the snakes are out, somebody says they're giant anacondas. I don't think so. They were acting like boa constrictors, but okay.
I'm pretty sure an anaconda is a type of constrictor.
Maybe. Oh, perhaps. I'm not a herpetologist. But I did kind of wish that they were going to be really. I felt like they should have just been giant cobras because it would have been really super duper on the nose. But I felt like if you were going to have giant ridiculous snakes, make them cobras. You know, let's leave no room for interpretation. He's fighting giant cobras as a ninja trainee. Someday he'll fight cobras as terrorists. Fine, they didn't do that. But I don't think the movie was missing anything by not doing that. It was just something I wanted to see.
Right.
But then I would have thought, well, if they were giant cobras, then we would have had a Ricky Tikki Tavi thing. And okay, we don't need to do that either. But
I do not know what you're talking about.
When I was a kid, there was a movie called Ricky Tikki Tavi. It was a cartoon, and there was a mongoose fighting these cobras in India. anyway, it was. I don't know why my brain remembers these kind of things, but so tell me, name your 3 favorite things about the movie.
Okay, so we've touched on a couple of them. I absolutely loved how it incorporated the G.I. Joe mythology and built on that, especially with Scarlett's first scene. Like the way she was introduced, and my favorite part of that whole thing was when Snake Eyes is like, is she in trouble or should we do something? And just the way Akiko's like, who, Scarlett? Like, it was so dismissive of the idea that this is Scarlett in trouble. And it really, like, it gave Scarlett so much strength, because even though she wasn't on screen at the time, it was like, clearly this is somebody who can take care of herself. She deals with the people that are following her and then just keeps going on with her conversation like it was nothing. Even puts down the phone to make sure that they could see what's going on.
Yeah, so she was completely badass in that scene. And I liked her suitcases. They were weapons. She pulled the handle out of the suitcase and used them as bludgeoning weapons. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, and then she also had her crossbow later, which I wasn't sure if we were going to get. So when she showed up, starts firing her crossbow, starts using the machine, the submachine gun. So yeah, Scarlett's just amazing in this movie, and that's why, regardless of how I felt at the end of this movie, I'm still excited about the prospect of a G.I. Joe movie following this.
Agreed.
So the second thing I liked was Akiko. I thought that she was a really cool character that I really was only expecting to be like the love triangle, like the least important part of a love triangle or something like that, and just die at the end. And I was completely surprised that she had as much authority at the Arashikage clan, at the temple, as Storm Shadow did, basically, or like just one rung below. I liked the tension between her and Storm Shadow, that like she's the one that's looking at things strategically, but he's the one that's looking at things like with the lineage of the Arashikage clan. And so they're both on the same side, but they will often butt heads. And when she's introduced, it's clear that Storm Shadow has just won the last argument, and there's still some tension between them for that. And then when she's the one that calls out, like, Snake Eyes could clearly be anybody. He could be just somebody that's been sent in by our enemies to infiltrate the clan. And she was right. Like, she called it before we revealed that twist. And it really, like, it legitimized her as somebody that really knows what's going on. And then for the next half hour of the movie, it's just a cat and mouse thing between her and Snake Eyes that has its highs and lows, but for the most part, I really liked the two of them together as well.
I agree. She turned out to be a much more substantial character than I expected, and I'm actually really happy about that. She's another one that I'm kind of hoping that if they do a sequel, that she'll come back. I think she could easily be a new Joe later.
She could easily be Jinx.
Well, this is true. This is true because maybe they will do that. I could see that. My favorite thing about this was it was ninjas. The only thing that was missing was name checking a few, just like when they were introducing the Ninja Clan. I was kind of hoping that a couple of them would mention their names being Nunchuck, Chaban, and Dojo. It didn't happen, but their sequels, damn it, they could show up. There was a little bit of Ninja Force in here, and I was very happy about this.
Along those lines, there's nothing in this movie that tells me this, but I like to think of that Cobra that killed Snake Eyes' dad as Dice.
Ooh, I like that idea. I'd like the revelation later that he was Cobra.
Yep.
That he wasn't just some gangster or just some random
money collector, just
criminal.
Somebody that's dad had crossed.
He was like the revelation that he was actually sent by Cobra. I was trying to decide, well, which character can I pretend that he was? Oh, I like the idea that he was Dice. Slice and Dice are my favorite Cobra ninjas, so I really like that idea. I was really happy when the ninjas being on the motorcycles has been a thing all the way back to the Ninja Force days with the Ninja Lightning cycle in 92 or 93.
Yeah.
And 92. Then I do get the feeling that somebody making this movie with the motorcycles that they grew up in the Valor versus Venom era, because that is when Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow both had their own unique assigned bikes in the toy line. I'm like, wow, I'm like, somebody has definitely been paying attention to the mythos or the toy line since the vintage line, because there was a lot of newer Joe kind of vibes that I was getting from this, and I like that idea. But the biggest nerd moment that I had was when the fictional country of Barovia was name checked. I'm like, yes! I actually said, I'm like, what? In the theater, I'm like, Barovia. I'm like, okay, whoever wrote this, they're a nerd. They're a nerd. I was very happy. That is not anything I would have expected to ever actually hear in the dialogue of a G.I. Joe movie. I was very happy about this. I didn't expect it. Really happy about it. So what were some of your least favorite things?
So the big one was Snake Eyes' character arc. So I was on board early on when it ends up he actually is like working for the Yakuza and trying to take down the Arashikage clan. And then, it was going back and forth of like, oh, he would realize that maybe he was in over his head. Maybe he was doing something worse than he realized in exchange for getting the guy that killed his father. But he just kept doing it. And it was working for a while until the point where he stole the artifact and knows that he's handing it over to the bad guys, knows he's handing it over to terrorists, and that the Arashikage are actually good guys on a global scale, and that something terrible is going to happen. And yet he follows through with it, and it's like, I think that's unforgivable. And then the next step is that he doesn't kill the guy who killed his father. But it's like, but he is Cobra. He did kill your father. He did toy with him with those loaded dice, making him think that he had a chance to live. This guy could die, and it wouldn't make Snake Eyes look bad. Not nearly as bad as handing over that artifact that just went on to kill a bunch of ninjas. And then he leaves, and Akiko and Storm Shadow are after him. And because Snake Eyes starts attacking the guys that were trailing them, Akiko's like, oh, he's on our side. It's like, no, they could have just tried to kill him because they're bad guys and they betray their own agents. Like, he has done nothing to redeem himself. He shows up, he minimizes the damage he caused by handing over the artifact, and somehow Storm Shadow is the one that gets in a lot of trouble, and Akiko totally forgives him, gives him this really cool suit. Like, from that point on, it was like, why is anyone doing the things they are doing? And it was just too many in a row for me.
I had a big hang up with the end with, why the hell were they so mad at Storm Shadow? What the hell did he do to gain the ire that they got? Like, for his grandmother to say that to vow that he will never ever be the leader of the ninja. Why? Yeah. What the hell? What did he do?
Just put him in with the snakes until his heart's pure again.
I'm just like, what I'm like, they're sitting there. They're the whole clan leadership is there listening to her rip into Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes is standing there like, do 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 do. He gave them the damn MacGuffin device, which I don't remember the name of, and it was really stupid.
Something of the sun? Stone of the sun? No.
Yeah, anyway. It was, gem of, you know what? That was, I don't always get hung up on MacGuffins like that, but that thing was dumb as all shit. I mean, it looked cool, but when the Yakuza guy is running around holding it, firing it like it's a damn laser, I'm like, this is.
And sometimes it disintegrates people, sometimes it just kind of pushes them over.
And sometimes it sets the whole damn building on fire. How did he even know how to use that thing? So that bothered me. But what I do not understand, I almost feel like there was something that was rewritten or completely deleted from the movie that shows us exactly where Storm Shadow got whatever he did that was actually so wrong, because what we saw on screen, none of that, none of
Yeah.
his punishment, his none of that was justified.
Yeah.
That
So
was, it almost felt like he has to become a bad guy by the end of this, so they just sort of hastily wrote the thing.
yeah, like going into the movie based on the trailers, I was like, I'm really curious how they're going to make Storm Shadow the villain, because he seems like a good guy in the trailers.
He's a stand-up guy.
He was the whole movie. He was duped by Snake Eyes. Oh, like that scene where Snake Eyes cuts his hand just to get Storm Shadow's blood. Like there's so much honesty and vulnerability in Storm Shadow in that scene, and Snake Eyes doesn't stab him in the back, but he takes his blood and steals from him. Like it's such a betrayal. And like the fact that he even tolerates Snake Eyes enough at the end to help them fight off and save the dojo, it's like it just shows how much the Arashikage means to Storm Shadow. And it like at no point does he do anything wrong. He uses the gem once, which I think the first time we hear that he's not supposed to is right after he uses it.
Yeah, and I got the sense that they yelled at him because they didn't want him to use the gem to kill the, what's his name, Katsu,
Kenta.
Or Kenta, but he didn't kill him. He missed altogether. True. It's like he uses it to shoot, and he missed, or tried to miss. I don't even know. Maybe he intentionally missed him. Maybe I don't know. But when that Snake Eyes had with the plan to be the Blood Brothers and putting it on the sword and shaking, and it was all a ruse to get the blood on the. And I don't get the sense that the blood on that rag should have been able to.
Yeah, it feels like it should have been wet and warm for it to work on that data.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been, but whatever. Again, I can't get hung up on the logistics of these things because, it would make my brain hurt if I did. But that particular plan that Snake Eyes had, I'm like, that was.
It was premeditated. It was based on betraying his trust. It was so villainous. And it was after he knew that he was going to be giving a weapon to terrorists.
Yes, I felt like at that point, that was the only point in the movie where I felt like the characterizations of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow had actually been reversed. Like they were to be each other's characters. And that really bothered me because, again, Storm Shadow is a stand-up guy with honor all the way through the movie, and then it helps them in everything at the end. Even the Baroness helped them at the end. I did appreciate.
We got to talk about that.
Yes. But
so you appreciated that?
With the Baroness, with the team up, yes.
Yeah.
But it was more because the way they capped it off, what she said when she decided, you know what, forget, and she's like,
I think it's the first F-bomb in a movie based on toys that I can remember.
In the second Transformers movies,
is there an F-bomb in that?
You can't hear it, but it's clearly said over under the music. Like you could you can clearly see one of the characters mouth it, and it's there. But yeah, this is the first time where she's outright fuck this and just runs. So I did appreciate that. It was capped off by that. I'm like, okay, I can appreciate it. But
so everything about that before it was one of the other things I really disliked. Like that scene, she's lying on the floor for a long time, and Scarlett's whispering to her. They're surrounded by bad guys, and somehow they can hear each other. That logistically I'm questioning. But then they both get up, walk over to the Storm Shadow's grandmother, turn around. It's like, why isn't anyone stopping this? Like, are they alone? What happened? They were surrounded by goons a second ago. And it might have just been because at that point the movie had lost me and I started really getting in nitpicking mode. But that whole scene felt so weirdly staged, and it led to almost nothing. Baroness kills a couple of bad guys and then leaves, and the team up was pretty pointless.
Yeah, it was. I feel like, when one of them, either Snake Eyes or either Scarlet or the Baroness, says our goals are the same or are aligned for at least today or
Yeah.
whatever.
It
And
seems
I'm
like
just
our
like,
goals are aligned, and then Baroness is like, for now, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like, and then Scarlett says later, well, I'll give you a head start, like as if to say, when this is all over, I probably won't kill you, but I'll let. What? I'm like, you know, for not understanding their connection in the first place, um, then there's all of that, and I'm just like, I honestly am not even sure. Other than their GI Joe's #1 girl and Cobra's #1 girl. Why are they rivals? I'm really not sure.
Because in
But
art, when there's G.I. Joe on one side and Cobra on the other, it's usually Scarlet and Baroness team up.
exactly.
And that's
Other
it. They
than
have
that,
no actual connection.
no, I'm like, and then when they team up for whatever reason at the end, I'm like, I'm really not sure why they were teamed up, because why did she switch from, I know the guy took the jewel and he decided that he was gonna go attack the Arashikage castle and all that, but why did the Baroness switch at that point? Why didn't she just go with him and try to take the jewel away from him?
She also asked for the jewel at such a weird time. She was like, we held up our end of the bargain. No, he doesn't have the Arashikage yet. They're not totally destroyed. The grandmother's right there. You're in the middle of the job, Baroness. Let him finish it. And so, like, it was the wrong time to ask for it. She got betrayed because, yeah, she didn't do her end of the job.
Yeah, or just kill him and take it.
Yeah.
It was really weird because up until that point, she's set up to be a really great villain. And then I felt like she just wasn't villainous enough. I feel like I I feel like they were toying with the idea that, oh, maybe she's not such a bad person after all. Yeah, she is. And if we see a sequel, I want to see the Baroness as a villain. As villainous as she started out in this movie, I really thought that they were off to a good start with her.
Yeah, they kind of pulled the carpet out from under her.
Yeah, they really did. And it was, I felt like there were a lot of points in this movie where they had an idea and then they decided, no, let's do something else with it. I don't know if it was rewrites in the script or if there was things that were cut out. I'm not really sure. But all of this is to say, well, I can honestly say, no matter what, it's still a better movie than Retaliation.
Ouch, I disagree.
I tried to rewatch Retaliation last year for the first time in a few years, and the dialogue really just got under my skin. In every way. I like The Rise of Cobra better than Retaliation, and not because it's a better movie, because it's super, super not. But the difference between Retaliation and Rise of Cobra is this. Rise of Cobra is a dumbass movie that knows it's a dumbass movie and never tries to play itself off as a movie with any merit at all. It's dumb action, and it plays that up with the crap dialogue and the way over the top everything else. Where Retaliation wants to pretend that it's a super awesome action movie, but it's got horrible dialogue and just there's a cheese factor that it's like it doesn't realize it has. Where this didn't have a lot of cheese factor, but I felt like they didn't entirely know what they wanted this movie to be. And that was weird to watch.
Well, that's kind of relates to my last point, where when I went into Rise of the Cobra, there were things I didn't expect to like and things I expected to like, and it pretty much met those expectations. There were a couple of things that even actually exceeded my expectations, which was Cobra's plot. I thought was pretty cool in that movie. But anyway, it was like, it's not going to be great, but at least what I thought would be bad, which was the dialogue, the acting, some of the costumes I thought were terrible. Everyone was just wearing black leather. And so it delivered on all my expectations. Whereas this, the fact that it failed to be really cool martial arts, those big scenes were just a blur. That is such a disappointment to me. Where, like, anytime it was a mob versus somebody, it was just shaky camera. And we've seen behind the scene footage. We've seen them practicing those routines. So, like, the actors killed themselves getting into that shape. Stunt coordinators put together some really cool stuff, and the director kind of failed them by making those scenes almost impossible to watch. And so, like, I thought if at the worst I will have a cool martial arts movie, and I didn't really get cool martial arts. I got shaky cam.
I loved the ninja stuff.
Yes.
But I do agree that the actual fight scenes, especially at the end, where they've got a lot of Yakuza guys running around, they're basically just mobsters with swords. And they got killed off in record numbers. Like, they have swords, but they don't know what to do with them. And it's all just sort of muddled. And it was like the Arashikage clan, when they first pull up in those limos, when we first see, there's a lot of ninjas in that temple. But then for that final battle, we didn't see most of them. And I don't know.
I mean, you blow up one building, that takes out a lot of ninjas.
This is true. This is true. We don't know how many of those people were in there. But you're right. I wasn't even thinking about that. But you're right. So they probably did dwindle their numbers. But they just sort of, it was like they just kept losing track of the action. And I felt like, and I really did. I feel like for somebody like Akiko was so skeptical about Snake Eyes at first. And then you're right. He takes the thing and she trusts him too much.
She forgives him too quickly based on nothing. And once she forgives him, she is 100% on board the Snake Eyes train.
Yeah, I mean, it's great if she comes back in a sequel and it turns out she's a Joe and it's water under the bridge, and that's cool. But yeah, that was a weird resolution.
Something else I forgot to bring up is that it felt like they were making a big point of the fact that Snake Eyes hasn't killed anybody. Like when he was in charge of killing Storm Shadow and he didn't, like it felt like that whole presentation, even though it was all a ruse, but the idea was that this was Snake Eyes' initiation into Yakuza by killing somebody for the first time. Then he has the chance to kill his father's murderer and he doesn't. And it's like they're building to something. They're making a point that Snake Eyes never killed anybody. Except that like 5 minutes later, he's kicking people off of the car carrier under cars. And it's like, well, he's definitely killed at least one of those guys. So if they were building to something that he's never killed anyone, it's done. It's done with no ceremony, no presentation.
Well, and if that would be a weird character trait that he doesn't kill people because really.
Oh no, I figured eventually he would kill somebody and that would be part of it. I figured it would be he gets scarred, loses his voice, and then he kills somebody. But how? How do you have the Snake Eyes movie where he's still talking by the end of the movie?
I in my head, I like the idea that Snake Eyes, like, I'm not a big fan of the facial damage, and that's why he can't talk thing. I kind of like the idea
that maybe he's from Rise of Cobra.
No, maybe it's more like he's kind of the quiet one, bit Silent Bob, but he's like a super sociopath, and you probably don't want him to talk because if he does talk, then you're probably not going to like what he has to say. But I'm fine with Snake Eyes being able to talk, but he's not the silent killer in this at all. He was his alliances weren't clear at the end when he's going after Storm Shadow. I still don't know if he's on the side of the Arashikagis. He's definitely not Yakuza anymore, but I don't know who he wants to work for. It's
when Scarlett has that line about like, yeah, your dad was Joe, maybe one day you'll be a Joe. It's like, based on what? What did this guy do to deserve to be part of the Joes? He will turn on you for anything, Scarlett.
Yeah, I'm not. They didn't do a good job of setting up a guy who will someday be a Joe. Yeah. I did like hearing hearing Joe Colton get name checked.
Instead of Hawk, that was a surprise.
I was surprised by this. I was kind of hoping at the end, in the mid credits, or no, the tag scene at the end on the airplane, Storm Shadow's there sitting there, and he says he wants to be Storm Shadow. I really expected that they were going to have somebody pop up that was going to turn out to be Cobra Commander.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for at least one other Cobra cameo at the end, or at least just like an off-screen, like the voice you hear off-screen to imply that Cobra Commander's on the plane.
Yeah, I was expecting something, or if not Cobra Commander, then at least
kind of had to be Cobra Commander.
Well, you're right. It did kind of have to be Cobra, and I was just surprised that there wasn't somebody else sitting on the plane with them, yeah. Or she's got a huge security force around her. Also, they're the other passengers on the plane, and they're wearing blue suits and masks or something, right. You know, to so that we could see a little bit more of what Cobra did. And right at the end, when Scarlet is talking about Snake Eye's father and she mentions Joe Colton, I was kind of hoping for a few other Joes that maybe don't get named to pop up on the screen. You know, kind of
because he's like flipping through the files and there's like a plane, but it's kind of a nondescript plane. That would have been a cool plot for some more cameos.
Yeah, I kind of, yeah, I was expecting to see, yeah, the file pictures of other characters that we'd be able to clearly see from the photographs.
You can see 12 of them. There's a 13th one that's obscured. That's Shooter.
Yeah. Somebody's hand is over Shooter's
Snake Eyes, fingers in the way.
But I don't. So I was a little disappointed in that because this does scratch the surface of the larger Joe mythos. But I was kind of hoping that they would set it up with more characters to lead into the next one.
Right. Because, looking at like G.I. Joes that have enough of a backstory and are popular enough that you could give them their own origin movie, Snake Eyes is obviously one of them. I feel like Storm Shadow from the comics was strong enough, but now that we've had this movie Storm Shadow, I don't see a Storm Shadow origin movie being anything different from just Snake Eyes 2.
Agreed.
So, like, and after that, is it Scarlet? Like, Duke does not have any kind of interesting backstory or any backstory. I don't think it's ever been explored. So, there's the Lady J TV series that's being talked about, and I guess that's a character that has enough going on that you could have a whole series around her.
I'm hoping that comes true because Lady J is one of my favorite Joes. Same. So I love the idea that we'd see like a covert ops television show and she's the center character. Ideally, we'd like to see characters like Chuckles pop up too. Yep. I don't know if this is going to get a sequel. I hope it does for the sake of, because again, I'll support it. I will support the G.I. Joe brand no matter what. And I will do my best to like everything that they put out. That G.I. Joe Reloaded comic that they did, that Image did, or the Devil's Due did.
Chuck Dixon wrote that one?
No, it was, maybe it was. It was the first time that they had launched a second completely separate continuity at the same time that the main Devil's Due continuity was running, and it was an interesting idea that just fell on its face. I remember there was the cool comic book cover of Cobra Commander in the blue hood, but he's got like the black trench coat on, and he was very Hydra-ish.
Right.
I think that was a coincidence. That was interesting, but I don't think I tried on that. But that's one of the few times I can honestly say I show my support to the brand and then they do something like that. I'm like, disappointment. Built to Rule, same thing.
No, I love Built to Rule. As a kid, I imagined a toy line that was basically Built to Rule, basically a combination of G.I. Joe and Lego where you can put their weapons on the Lego pegs on their arms. Like, Built to Rule was so close to my childhood perfect toy line. It was unbelievable. It was like somebody had read my mind.
All right, I really like the Built to Rule barrel roll figure better than the carded version.
That's the reddish one, right?
No, he was green and gray, but he had like a 5 o'clock shadow on his
Okay.
face, and he was painted better. I don't know. I like that figure a lot. Built to Roll Wild Weasel was weird.
Yes.
But
I like the
um,
Built to Roll Firefly. That was a good one at the time too.
actually, I think that was better than the mainline Firefly there too.
Yeah.
But I just and I always give new iterations of GI Joe a chance. Um, and I like this one enough that I really hope that they keep going with it if we get sequels. Because what I don't want is in a couple of years a new movie to come out and it's another relaunch.
Yes.
I I really everybody's all excited about the prospect of new GI Joe animation next year, which we've already gotten news about. We've gotten an announcement about it. But my worry is that it's going to be another new animation project that gets a season and then it just is completely abandoned. GI Joe Renegades, one season where they did all this world building and then they just dropped it all together. Or GI Joe,
Resolute.
yeah, Resolute, where they did this new badass GI Joe continuity and it was an hour long and then we never saw anything else from it. I don't understand why they can't consistently give GI Joe a medium on the screen where they just let it go and run its course for a while. But I don't want this new cinematic
universe.
Yeah, I don't want it to be abandoned before it has a chance to expand outward a bit. I mean, if a sequel comes out and it's no better than this, or it doesn't do enough, fine. But I hope they give it a chance because I like Henry Golding. The guy is all over the marketing for this, and he's a new face for the brand. That if he's going to stick around and keep doing this, that'd be great. Again, to have some consistency because the last person that we had as a big spokesperson for cinematic GI Joe was The Rock, and for some reason they couldn't even follow up on Retaliation with a sequel starring The Rock. How do you not make a sequel starring The Rock again? But I hope they don't abandon this one before they give it a chance.
So actually, I hadn't really thought about that, but it's true. Henry Golding is really the first person attached to any of the movies that really loves the fact he's in a G.I. Joe movie.
Yes.
Like Channing Tatum hated it. Ray Park was the other big name in Rise of Cobra. Completely indifferent. Dennis Quaid also seemed like he was almost making fun of the movie with the way he was performing as Hawk, as this like weird playboy guy. Like none of these cast members are like, yeah, G.I. Joe is my thing. Henry Golding is somebody that G.I. Joe is clearly his thing. And that's
yeah, because who was it? Marlon Wayans he just refused to come back for the second one.
Did he? I wasn't sure if it was a mutual.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was like, I'm out. Brendan Fraser was making fun of Rise of Cobra.
Right.
Yeah. The cameo scene, and he was making fun of it. I'm like, really? Again, it was a dumb movie that knew it was a dumb movie and played up that it was a dumb movie, but at least the cast could have pretended that they gave a shit, but clearly they didn't.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, another guy who, like, in the interview stage, he would try and move past G.I. Joe and onto his indie films as quickly as possible.
Completely and totally just dismissing it as just a thing that was on his resume. It is nice to see that the star of the movie is all about hyping it. He did some video that I saw. He was live streaming playing Fortnite last week.
He played Snake Eyes on Fortnite.
And I'm like, okay, that's cool. He's appearing on the late night talk shows just to hype the movie up. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I hope they keep going with him because G.I. Joe needs a media champion because it doesn't have it. And it's really refreshing to see that this guy honestly believes in this property and I want to hear more from the rest of the cast, but this is a really good start. And I don't know the actress that plays the Baroness. I've never seen her in anything else. I didn't know who she was before she was announced as playing the Baroness, but she's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, she had real screen presence.
She was a much better Baroness in every regard than Sienna Miller, who was just meh about the whole. I didn't like her characterization. Christopher
She
Eccleston.
put on an American accent to play the Baroness. Like, she's a British actress, and she went out of her way to not do a classic Baroness accent. What a loss.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, the actress playing the Baroness in this movie, it's a nice non-specific European accent, which is what the Baroness should have. Rise of Cobra, the other one, Christopher Eccleston, he refused to comment on that movie.
Yeah.
But then, as I understand it, Christopher Eccleston is difficult. I can't speak to it. I don't know the guy, but I understand he's not always the easiest one to work with, and he's not a big fan of hyping things up. So, okay. But I do want to see some other cast members from this movie in interviews. I hope that they have even half the enthusiasm that Henry Golding has. So if they keep him around and they keep doing these movies, I'm all for it. And I kind of hope they do. And there's no giant snakes next time.
Or Snake Eyes rides the giant snake next time.
All right. You know what? At least that would get toys. Then they would definitely make toys out of that. But all right, I will say, Ryan, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Discuss this. I really wanted to podcast about it, but I didn't just want to review it. I just really wanted to talk to somebody else who'd seen it and had enthusiasm for it, and I appreciate it. Thank you. So tell everybody where they can find you online, and if you have any projects or any other sort of media presence that you want to mention.
Sure. So the big thing I want to promote is that I was one of the authors on the G.I. Joe role-playing game that's coming out from Renegade Game Studios. And there's a major announcement about it coming out at Renegade Con Virtual Convention, special edition, which is August 27 and 28. So we're going to be talking about the game itself, because 3 games have been in development from Renegade: Power Rangers, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. And very little else has been revealed about this. Very little art is out. In fact, I don't think any of our original art is out there. We haven't talked about the game system. We haven't talked about almost anything. And so that'll be a big weekend where I'll be on one of the panels, and we're just people that have been contributing to this project will be all over it. And honestly, I am super excited about that book to come out. My fingerprints are all over this. If you know what I like about G.I. Joe and you read through the core rulebook, you will find a lot of things that it's like, yes, Ryan definitely worked on this.
Okay. Is Backstop in the game?
Yes.
Is there a character that happens to be called Scramble in the game?
There is not, but the word scramble, like the verb scramble, certainly comes up a few times.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, good. I'm glad that you got the only official Canadian Joe member into the into the game. I had to ask.
It wasn't even a fight, because they kind of wanted an international team. So SkyMate is on the official roster, and
awesome.
Big Ben is on there. Basically everyone except for the Russian characters, because they are sort of October Guard, and we're going to keep October Guard as a faction in the universe. But like, I didn't need to ask permission. I didn't need to explain Backstop. It was just like, here's my idea for the active roster in our game. Sure.
That's super cool. Wait a minute. Okay, so you got SkyMate, you got Big Ben, Red Dog.
Yeah, Red Dog's in there. All 3 Renegades are in there.
Okay. Okay, even better. I'm just thinking of that's right, because Taurus, he's Turkish.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, this is excellent. I had not heard about this. I'm very excited about
Oh,
this.
really? I figured my name is back in the community, and it's because of this role-playing game. So I figured that's why you invited me.
No, I'm really happy about this. I had not. No, I take that back. I had heard that there were role-playing games for some of the Hasbro properties coming out, but I wasn't aware that G.I. Joe was actually specifically on that list. because GI Joe has a tendency to not get that kind of media support, so I'm really happy about this.
Yep.
I dude, that sounds excellent. I yeah, and then wow, you said that was August 27th and 28th?
That is the virtual convention. Yeah, that's
Right.
when official
Yeah,
stuff is going to be announced.
That's cool because you said you're going to be on the panel, right?
I'm going to be on one of the
For
panels on the 28th. Let me see if I can find the exact time.
Because I will make sure that when my co-host edits this and posts it, that he puts that information in the show notes. Because we're going to post it on YouTube. Because this is really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I had seen on Facebook that you were working on something big. That you were writing something, but I didn't realize that's what this was.
Yeah,
or
sorry,
perhaps my memory just really sucks. We're gonna go with that. I'm senile in my old age.
Oh, there we go. I finally found the schedule. So it's the panel is called Role Playing Game Walkthrough. It's with myself, with Brian CP Steele, who was mainly on the Power Rangers team, and Elisa Teague, who was our project manager on the whole RPG projects. And so it's at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time until 3:30. So it's an hour long. 2:30 Pacific is 5:30 Eastern, I believe.
Yes, 5:30. Yeah. Yep. Well, that is excellent. And yeah, that's really cool. But yes, thank you for joining me on this episode. At some point, I'd like to have you on as a guest with when my co-host is on it.
Sure. Wait for the RPG to come out, and then we can talk.
Oh, we will. Yes, sir. This, we should find a way to play a session or 2 or 4 over Zoom. Can we do that? Can we do that? That'd be great.
So that's the thing. We have to release the community use policy just to make sure that license-wise, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Once that's released, I will get back to you about that because I would absolutely love to run the game for you.
That would be fantastic.
Cool.
But all right, Ryan, thank you for joining me, and I will say, yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.